When 50 F-16 touch down on Ukrainian soil, the sound alone changes the atmosphere of the war. That high-pitched whine, the roar of afterburners, suddenly the sky doesn't belong to Russia anymore. For the first time, Ukraine could look up and see an air force that actually stands a chance. Not just to survive, but to strike back. It's not an exaggeration to say these jets could rewrite the script of the conflict overnight. But to understand why, you have to go back to what Ukraine has been flying all this time. Aging MiG-29s and Su-27s, built in the Soviet era, patched together after years of sanctions, cannibalized for parts, constantly hunted by Russian surface-to-air systems. They've done what no one thought possible. Kept flying, kept fighting. But even the bravest pilot can only do so much in outdated metal. Now imagine stepping into a cockpit that looks like it belongs to another century. The F-16's digital displays, its fly-by-wire controls, its radar that can spot a threat long before the pilot even sees it with the naked eye. That's not just a new jet, it's a new language of warfare. And Ukraine is about to start speaking it. Here's where it gets interesting. 50 jets might not sound like much, but in modern warfare, that's not a small number. It's a squadron-level shockwave. When used intelligently, 50 F-16s could transform how Ukraine fights across hundreds of miles of front lines. It's not just about shooting down enemy planes, it's about shaping the entire battlefield. Russian bombers will have to think twice before flying near the border. Attack helicopters, which have been terrorizing Ukrainian positions, suddenly become sitting ducks, and every missile launched from the ground gets a new set of eyes watching from above, guiding, tracking, warning. But there's one hard truth. These jets won't change everything overnight unless the people flying them are ready. You can't simply hand a pilot the keys to an F-16, like a new car, and tell him to figure it out. Ukrainian pilots are some of the most adaptable in the world. They've been surviving on instinct and improvisation. But this is a whole different ecosystem. The controls, the flight behavior, the weapon systems, even the terminology, it's all Western. And that means training, lots of it. Right now, small groups of Ukrainian pilots are scattered across NATO bases in Europe and the US, learning how to operate these jets under immense time pressure. Some of them came from Soviet aircraft, where switches are analog, gauges are manual, and everything feels heavy and mechanical. The F-16, by contrast, is almost alive. It reacts instantly. It flies as if it knows what the pilot is about to do before he does it. And that's not something you master in a few weeks. They start in classrooms, memorizing every light and alarm. Then come the simulators, hundreds of hours spent in a digital cockpit until muscle memory takes over. Finally, they move to real training flights, often under the supervision of Western instructors. And even that's just the beginning. Learning to fly an F-16 is one thing. Learning to fight with it, to coordinate, to execute complex missions, to survive is something entirely different. Think about that for a second. Every piece of ground equipment, the tugs, refueling trucks, radar calibration tools, has to be imported, modified, or rebuilt. Spare parts need to move through secure supply lines that are constantly under attack. Even the airfields themselves might need reinforcement, since F-16s have thinner landing gear and require smoother runways than the rugged MiGs they replace. One missile strike on a maintenance hangar could ground half a squadron. This is why Western allies are investing heavily in the logistics side, training Ukrainian technicians, building mobile maintenance units, even developing improvised shelters and camouflage systems to protect the jets. Because keeping the planes alive is just as important as flying them. And then comes the reality check. Not every F-16 heading to Ukraine will be the latest and greatest variant. Some will be older models upgraded but not cutting edge. They might lack certain data links or advanced radar modes that Western air forces rely on. So while they'll still be vastly superior to what Ukraine has now, they won't magically dominate Russian skies overnight. Still, even a partially equipped F-16 is a serious threat when used smartly. With proper tactics, Ukraine could use them to defend critical infrastructure, escort drones and bombers, or carry precision munitions deep into Russian-occupied territory. Just their presence forces Russia to reposition anti-air batteries, stretch radar coverage, and change flight paths. Every adjustment the enemy makes burns fuel, time, and morale. The F-16 isn't just a weapon, it's a psychological weapon. For 2 years, Ukrainian troops have fought knowing the skies belong to someone else. Every day they've heard the whistle of incoming bombs or seen drones hovering overhead. When those same troops look up and see their own jets flying cover, jets that can actually fight back, it changes something deep inside. It gives them confidence. And in war, confidence is ammunition. But the real challenge isn't in the first week of deployment, it's in the months that follow. Can Ukraine sustain high sortie rates? Can they rotate pilots fast enough? Can they repair jets under constant missile threat? These questions will decide whether the F-16 becomes a turning point or just a symbolic gesture. So far, Ukraine has proven one thing: it learns fast. Every weapon system they've received, from HIMARS to Patriots to cruise missiles, they've integrated faster than anyone expected. There's no reason to think the F-16 will be different. But the scale of this integration is massive. We're talking about retraining pilots, retooling entire bases, rewriting playbooks, and all of it while fighting an active war. Still, the potential payoff is enormous. Once those 50 jets are fully operational, they won't just defend the skies. They'll redefine how Ukraine fights on the ground too. With real air support, artillery can move more freely. Troops can advance without fearing constant overhead attacks. Supply convoys can reach the front faster. Even reconnaissance improves when you control the air. This isn't just about a fleet of aircraft. It's about reclaiming the concept of control. For the first time in the war, Ukraine might actually dictate the tempo in the air rather than react to it. And that shift, when it happens, won't just be visible on radar screens. It'll be felt across the entire front line. The moment those F-16s start flying combat missions, the entire rhythm of the war changes. Russian pilots who once cruised with confidence will suddenly find themselves second-guessing every radar ping, every blip on their display. The comfort of dominance evaporates. They'll have to climb higher, burn more fuel, stay farther from the front. And in a war of attrition, every extra mile flown and every ounce of fuel wasted slowly tilts the balance. For Ukraine, this is the first time it can truly fight in 3 dimensions. Until now, it's been a ground war with limited air cover, a patchwork of drones, missiles, and bravery. But F-16s brings something entirely new: reach. They can launch precision strikes on supply lines deep behind Russian positions, escort drones into enemy airspace, and even act as flying command posts coordinating ground attacks. Suddenly, the battlefield expands. The Russians can't just look east and west, they have to look up. And it's not just about bombs and missiles. The F-16s bring digital eyes and ears, radars that can map terrain, sensors that track movement, data links that connect every unit in real time. That networked awareness means Ukrainian commanders won't just react to Russian moves, they'll anticipate them. A truck convoy forming 50 miles away? Detected. Helicopters taking off in Belgorod? Tracked. A new missile battery rolling into range? Tagged and targeted. The chaos of the battlefield becomes a little less chaotic when you can actually see the full picture. But every advantage comes with a price. To use these jets effectively, Ukraine will have to change how it fights. The F-16's power comes from integration, combining air, ground, and intelligence into one synchronized dance. That's a skill NATO air forces spent decades perfecting. Ukraine has to learn it in months. Commanders who've spent their careers directing artillery now need to think like air marshals, coordinating squadrons, refueling runs, radar coverage, and missile defenses in the middle of a shooting war. It's trial by fire, literally. Then there's the maintenance grind. The F-16 is famously reliable, but reliability still needs routine. Every sortie adds wear. Every high G turn stresses the airframe. The jet needs constant calibration and care. If you skip steps or rush repairs, the aircraft punishes you. And unlike civilian hangars, Ukrainian bases operate under the shadow of missile strikes. Technicians have to work fast, quietly, often at night, moving jets between hidden shelters. In a sense, each aircraft becomes a ghost, never staying in one place long enough for Russian satellites to track. That nomadic style of warfare fits Ukraine's personality. They've been adapting like this since day one. When the world said they couldn't keep their drones flying, they did. When people said they'd run out of ammunition, they didn't. The F-16 is just the next challenge, one that rewards creativity as much as discipline. Still, 50 jets can only cover so much sky. That's why how they're used will matter more than how many there are. If Ukraine tries to match Russia plane for plane, it'll lose. But if it treats the F-16s like precision scalpels, used for key strikes, timed defenses, and high-impact missions, they could completely rewire the rhythm of the war. It's not about dogfights, it's about control, disruption, and fear. The first weeks for Ukraine's F-16 will be brutal. Every launch risks exposure. Every mission will be hunted, and that's where tactics will make all the difference. The F-16s might not fly over the front at all. They could operate from safer zones, firing long-range precision weapons that strike without entering danger. Think of them as snipers in the sky. There's also a strategic layer that goes far beyond missiles and maneuvers. The presence of Western jets ties Ukraine's future even closer to NATO's. Those aircraft need constant parts, upgrades, and intelligence feeds from allied nations. In a way, every F-16 that flies is a physical reminder that the West is now deeply invested in Ukraine's survival, and that carries its own deterrent. The more connected Ukraine becomes to NATO's logistics chain, the harder it is for Russia to escalate without risking wider confrontation. But the biggest shift might be psychological. Wars are fought with machines, yes, but they're won with morale. For 2 years, Ukrainian troops have fought knowing the skies were never truly theirs. Every offensive meant looking up. Every convoy meant praying the next sound wasn't a drone or a bomb. When the first F-16 takeoffs and roar overhead, that changes everything. Soldiers on the ground will feel protected in a way they haven't since the war began. The symbolism alone is worth as much as the technology. Still, no one expects miracles. 50 jets won't end a war of this scale overnight. What they will do is start a countdown, because once Ukraine proves it can operate and maintain these fighters effectively, the floodgates open. More jets from Europe, more parts, more training. Eventually, maybe even F-18s or Gripens. Each wave of reinforcement pushes Russia further into a corner, forcing them to defend a sky they no longer control. That's why some analysts call the F-16 delivery the inflection point. Not the end of the war, but the start of a new phase where the air finally becomes contested. And in modern conflict, whoever controls the sky usually controls the story that follows. The irony is that this whole transformation hinges on a number that sounds so small, 50 planes. But warfare has always been about leverage, not quantity. A single aircraft with the right pilot, the right intel, and the right timing can decide the outcome of a battle. Multiply that by 50, give them Western training, precision weapons, and an entire nation's determination, and you get a weapon that's as much psychological as it is physical. So will 50 F-16s change the war overnight? Maybe not literally overnight, but soon enough that everyone will feel it. Pilots will, ground troops will. Even the civilians hearing those engines for the first time will. It's the sound of balance returning to the sky. The sound of a war that's no longer one-sided. And maybe, just maybe, the sound of a future where Ukraine doesn't just fight for survival, but finally fights to win. And when that first dogfight happens, the moment a Ukrainian F-16 locks onto a Russian jet and fires, you can bet the world will be watching. Because that single missile won't just be a shot in the air. It'll be a signal that the age of Russian dominance in Ukrainian skies is over, and that 50 fighters, flown by the right hands, can change the course of a war. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more aviation and defense geeks like you. And if you want to see how future tech could shape the next decade of warfare, subscribe, because we've got deep dives coming on everything from stealth drones to 6th-generation fighters. The sky over Ukraine is changing, and so is the story of modern air power. Stick around because this war in the air is only just beginning.